kind of guy.
What's going on here? You are you're supposed to move over one. Trustee Kelly, right there.
I sat in your seat.
Frazier, one way or the other. Somebody.
Frazier. Frazier.
Or Sherry Frazier can move her. I don't care.
Nope, I'm. That's not gonna work. All right, we'll wing it then.
Okay.
I stole that seat because I needed power.
Oh, do you need it back?
Brian?
Yes.
Mary wants to
You
show
got it?
something in 2 minutes.
So I will show each of you, then you can take a look, I mean, you won't be able to hear what I'm saying, but we just wanted to show you that we've been able to find a solution to fix the alignment of Belleville and Tyler. So, by utilizing a portion of the township property, we're able to increase the site distance, so.
So we won't have to have a left-hand turn lane light.
We can still pursue having that if
Sure.
we want, but it does correct the sight line.
Press it, it's a sight line.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so, and it was minimal cost to the end total of the construction is 50 grand. So, I mean, it was minimal, that it
Total
didn't
construction's like
actually-
11.7 million, so.
yeah. Like, we were like, okay, what's this gonna cost us to do this? And when they come back with 50 grand, we're like, whoa.
So yeah, it's a major problem we've had for.
Exactly. So, yeah, so next steps is they'll go back and they'll implement these onto the site plans. We'll then submit them to Wayne County, make sure that they have a good understanding of everything. And then we'll continue with the rest of the final design. So,
I'm not sure
but
where Martin is.
solving this problem
Who?
was one of our biggest
Kevin Martin?
challenges, but.
Oh, I don't know.
priority of
He
mine
usually is pretty good about
So,
being
So it just moves in that lane a little.
Gonna be here?
yeah, so.
Good. All right, good work. No?
Keep it up. Hey, man, how you doing?
Beginning in less than a minute. Oh, jeez. Go ahead. Okay. Calling this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We are being broadcast live over Van Buren Television Channel 12. We're also on YouTube. Deputy Clerk, could you call the roll?
Trustee Frazier? Here. Trustee Kelly? Here. Trustee Boynton? Here. Trustee Martin is excused. Treasurer Bud? Here. Is also excused. Supervisor McNamara?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Executive summary. Today we have a meeting which consists of the board meeting minutes, the prepaid minutes, and the voucher list. That's basically our checkbook for standard things like electricity and heat. We also are going to be approving the reappointments of Walter Rahoviak, probably for about the 40th year, and Aline Parent to the Water and Sewer Commission. We're very thankful for the time they've put in to Van Buren Township. New business includes discussion on the 23 annual audit of all the township funds with Plant Moran. We will also be having a discussion on the selection of Premier Group, which will be looking to redo do a beach restoration project at Van Buren Park. We're also looking to amend an ordinance to clarify signage along Belleville and Sumter Road from what it is to a mixed-use district, something that can maybe help both of us out. And we're going to have a discussion on the second reading of an ordinance to rezone a parcel of land from agriculture and estate to Sumter Road mixed-use district. That's it. Well, moving on to adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a
Fraser.
motion, we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, Mr. Kelly. I have a motion. I have support. Hearing no further objections. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? This motion passes. Next is the adoption of the consent agenda. Who would like to read that off?
Through the chair,
Trustee Boynton, please.
I move that we accept the consent agenda, which consists of the following: board meeting minutes of June 4th, prepaid list of June 6th and 13th, and a voucher list of June 18th, all of 2024, and also the approval of reappointment of Walter Rohoviak and Eileen Parent to the Water and Sewer Commission with terms to expire June 1st, 2026.
Support.
Okay, I've got a motion by Trustee Boynton, supported by Treasurer Bud. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? This motion passes. We have no public hearings today, so we'll go right to correspondence, announcements, and presentations. Treasurer Bud.
Well, I guess I get the pleasure of making an announcement that's been excitedly waited for quite a long time, and it is the opening of the new community center on Monday, June the 24th, from 4 o'clock till 7 p.m. And we request everybody come join us, see how beautiful this new building is. I've walked through it. It's a hike. The walking track is beautiful, so we sure hope you can all come out. Thank you.
I think we have giveaways too, fanny packs.
Ah.
So, yeah. I went to Ireland about 4 years ago with my son, and I had a fanny pack, and I got ribbed constantly that I was boomer and nobody wears those, and I'm so uncool. And now fanny packs are all the rage. Moving on to public, is there anybody else that wants to make an announcement? No? Okay, moving on, we're gonna go on to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to make comment on today's agenda? No? Okay, we'll keep on moving on. Unfinished business, none. First item is discussion on to consider approval of the 23 annual audit of all the township funds. May I have a motion for approval?
Through the chair,
Mr. Kelly, trustee.
I move to consider approval of the 2023 annual audit of all township funds.
Support.
Okay. Take it away, Mr. Havlicek.
Thank you, Supervisor McNamara, and members of the Board of Trustees. Again, my name is Dave Halasek. I'm an audit partner with Plant Moran. With me this evening are Josh Eady and Josh Don, and we're here to present the results of the financial statement audit for Van Buren Township for the year ended December 31st of 2023. Prior to this evening, you should have received a copy of the financial report, as well as a couple communications to those charged with governance. You have a graph package, which will be a majority of our presentation. Josh is going to talk to that after I give this brief introduction. And consistent with, we also have coming later an ACE examination as it relates to a compliance examination that's not due until September 30th, related to the compliance of the spending of your ARPA rescue plan monies. As far as the financial statement is concerned, we completed our audit. As a result of our audit, we were able to give an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give a set of financial statements. What that means is these statements as presented fairly reflect the financial position of the township as of December 31st, 2023, and the change in that financial position, the revenues, the expenditures, the notes, the statement of cash flows, all fairly represent the position of the township. Prior to this evening's meeting, Josh and myself did meet with township management to cover these statements. I'll say in a great level of detail. We're going to cover the highlights today, but as we go through it, if there's any questions on anything we present, we'd be happy to to cover them as we go along. So Josh is going to cover the financial highlights through the graph. I'm going to talk a little bit to the letters, and then we can any questions on anything we didn't cover, we'll open it up as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Josh.
Thank you very much. So I will be covering the graphs as Dave said, and starting with the first graph here, this shows a 4-year history of the general fund revenues for the township. And you can see that in 2023, the revenues increased $16.7 million to $36.1 million. And largely that's due to new sources in the current year. So there was $6.9 million of debt proceeds. The recovery plan resources or ARPA funding of $3 million. Those were received in a prior year but earned in the current year due to being spent. And the community center resources, which were reimbursements from the DDA and Wayne County of $4.5 million. Now, there were other increases as well to a lesser extent. Property tax revenue increased 7% to $8,074,000. And then the other revenue increased to $7.2 million. The largest piece of that was a swing in investment income. Last year, that was about a $203,000 loss. This year, that would be an $816,000 gain. So that's the largest piece of that. There are also some smaller increases as well. The next slide would show similarly then the other side of the coin, 4 years of expenditures in the general fund, which increased to $34.3 million in 2023. The largest increase here was recreation and culture. That's almost entirely due to capital outlay for that wonderful community center that Treasurer Budd was mentioning earlier. That was $11 million in expenditures in the current year versus $2.5 million in 2022. To a lesser extent, the Iron Bell Trail project also had increased expenditures this year, $739,000 compared to $229,000 last year. The next slide shows the fund balance then over the 4 years, and amounts and allocations have shifted over the years. New this year, 2023 has almost $3.2 million restricted, almost all of which relates to unspent bond proceeds restricted for capital projects. And unassigned fund balance is 5% of 2023 expenditures, but just keep in mind that, as we just showed, 2023 expenditures were higher than in prior years, so that might not be represent a long-term piece of the way to look at expenditures. The last slide then shows a 4-year history of water and sewer revenues and expenses. Revenue and expense are both down about 0.6% over 2022, so fairly similar activity year over year with that. Oh, sorry, I didn't move along the slides here. So thank you very much. I'll hand it back to Dave.
Thanks, Josh. Just clarify one item before I get a call from Treasurer Budd and Deputy Treasurer Bellingham. As related to the interest income, there is a decrease, I'll call it investment income. So last year there was a decrease in market value, so there really wasn't a loss in investments, but you got to report at fair market value. So the township never lost money as it related to investment. It just had to be it had to be restated at fair market value, and it got back to its value upon maturity. So from that standpoint, the treasurer's office continued. Yes, and it's just fair market value, and then mature. Yeah. They're there. So yeah. You know the treasurer's office, as Josh has indicated, continues to be a good fiduciary of the township as it relates to investing of its dollars not needed for current operations. The one other item that, financially, before I talk about the communications, I know we touch upon this year after year, just a little bit about the legacy cost and where the township is on there from that perspective. When I talk legacy costs, we're talking funded pensions and funded OPEB costs, and as we all know, a number of years ago, the state came out legislatively and kind of set some benchmarks as far as underfunded systems. So, the township's was very aware of its funding levels even before that came out, and was particularly making strides to increase the retirement health system and its funding level. So the one thing I wanted to point out, and I'll point it out, I'll give a 3-year history as well, is on page 61 of your financial statement, your OPEB funding level, it gives you a 7-year history, and it really just shows, again, how proactive and how serious the township has been on addressing these legacy costs, and what's going to be doing in the future based on what's been done. So if you go back to 2017 on this diagram, or I'm sorry, on this chart, you'll see the third lines from the bottom in the 2017 column. While the township was really ahead of the curve as far as funding these liabilities, it was at 11%. The township, some 6 to 7 years later, is now almost 40% funded, which is a pretty big deal when you think about that from an OPEB standpoint, because really before some of these standards were even rolled out, it's really was funded as a pay-as-you-go type of, it was a budgeted line item, you didn't put any monies aside. Township's been very proactive and is on the verge of hitting that magical 40% number that the Public Act had established. So, again, kudos to the township for, taking that liability and the funding of that liability and putting necessary resources aside to cover those future costs. As it relates to the written communications, so I'd mentioned earlier our deliverables, and actually when we started the township audit, we thought that we were going to have a single audit, compliance audit. So when we started the audit, we had provided a yellow book, or basically said we were going to do the audit under yellow book. As it turned out, more information came available. And while you did hit that magic $750,000 federal compliance, because the majority of it was ARPA monies, we were able to do an examination versus a full-blown single audit. We were well into the financial statement audit. The only reason I mention this is normally what would be in one communication letter, we have in two, and that's just what the standards dictate. So we do have a report on internal control over financial reporting matters. It really just, talks a little bit about the internal control and what it is we do. So when I talked about the opinion earlier, we talk about and we opine on the financial position and the fairness of the financial statements as presented. We don't offer an opinion on internal control. We do review internal control. We do assess internal control, and we tailor our audit programs and our audit testing to the areas with the highest risk of misstatement. Now, that might be an inherent risk, areas that are just inherently based on their nature are more prone to that, or we're, based on controls. When we go through this and we find anything, either a deficiency or weakness, we're required to communicate that to this body at this point. On the last page, we have one finding, and the finding is related to a journal entry. So I'll say, of all the findings you have, and this relates to putting capital assets on your governmental activities, this is the one you really want. So it's just at the end of the year, we need to ensure that all the capital-related items that are spent and recorded properly on your modified basis, which is what you budget on. Anything that needs to be capitalized, we just need to make sure on our government-wide basis that expense is, turned into an asset and depreciated. Covered that with finance and the accounting office. They agreed with the adjustment. The only reason it's here is it's because it was a big number. That being said, this adjustment, because it was on the government-wide basis, had zero impact on your modified accounting basis, which is what you budget against and really what you report on. That was our only finding. I think, we've talked about this before. I think that's pretty, it really indicates what a strong department, both in the treasurer's office and the clerk's office, and all those who are responsible for providing the information, utilities, to us to audit, because we start with a clean slate every year, even though we're familiar, obviously, with township operations. You see some not so familiar faces behind me. Both Josh and Josh are new to the audit, so that's always good because it gives a different perspective from those who have done the audit before. So real good report on internal controls. The communication to those charged with governance, you'll recall before the audit started, I would have sent out a communication that indicated, that we're going to do the audit. We identified the potential risks for misstatements, how we were going to address those as part of our audit procedures, and gave each of you the opportunity to contact me or Josh if you had any concerns from a financial reporting standpoint. We incorporate that within the audit. The section 1 of this letter is really kind of the back end of that communication. So we're done, and do we have anything to report? And really, this is a pretty, I'll say, pretty plain report, which is what you want. There's really no exceptions. While it does talk to new standards that were implemented and estimates that were involved in as part of the audit, there's really nothing alarming that would have been in this letter. To be honest, if there was something alarming, it would have been in that first letter that I would have communicated. So from that perspective, nothing to report other than that one journal entry at this time. Section 2 is not a required communication, but that is something that we've included in the past, and it's really the information that we get from a number of sources, associations that we belong with, and I know a number of you belong in some of those same associations, but it's really trying to bring the legislative matters kind of into that would affect, that we believe could potentially impact the township, and bring it in one place just so you've got that information available to you. When I look through it, a couple things, I think, warrant even bigger attention. For the second year on page 6, and for the second year in a row, as you know, the inflation multiplier was at 5.1%, which is higher than Proposal A. It kind of limited the individual growth at 5%. So it's 5.1, but I'd look at that as a good thing. You're seeing, growth in values in the community, and that having that limit, really is a benefit to your constituents, and it helps from a planning perspective on budgets going forward from the township. I talked about that big schedule on OPEB and pension and the liabilities. On page 7, we've kind of condensed that into a three-year period. The pension funding, just to be clear, the pension funding is showing a decrease, and that is because the MERS values are reported as of December 31st of 2022, so they haven't completed their audit, so the information hasn't come out. So under the standard, you're allowed to report that a year in arrears, and you've done that since inception. So as you may recall, back in December of 2022, there was kind of a whoop down in the market. So you kind of had a decrease in those investments. If you haven't, they've rebounded. We've seen some reports already. I don't know if the township has received its MERS report yet. I know they're starting to become available now, but I suspect that you're going to be seeing that coming up again this year.
So just real quickly, so even though in 2022, our total OPEB liability was $14.6 million. In 2023, it went up to $16.3 million.
Yeah, so let me
61.
Let me go to my page here.
Even though we paid it down.
Page 61.
Yeah, even though we paid it down.
Yep.
Why does it go up like that?
So it's twofold. So if I'm looking at column 22 to 20, comparing 22 and 23, and taking a look at the largest increase,
Yeah.
the largest increase relates to a change in assumption. So any assumption changes related to if you've got mortality change, or if they're using different health cost trends, that can have an impact. That's part of their estimate. So you can see that increase of 1.15 million. That is literally from nothing you've done. It's just a change in the inputs and what that liability might.
So they think that medical costs are going to go up.
Yeah,
1.5 million more than they thought they were going to
well,
go last year.
actuarially, that's what they're. It's included in there. I just want to verify that that
Okay.
was the number here. 2023 change in assumptions. There's a reduction in the discount rate was part of it. and the medical trend rate. So you saw decreases, so it's really nothing you've done. You almost want to, you're not going to get that swing every year. I mean, that's just a look at what might happen in the future. If you kind of take that out, and, which I know you don't want to exclude anything, but you say, okay, 1.1 of the $1.7 million increase was related to a change in assumptions. That could bring that total increase in the liability of about $600,000. And part of that is you've got folks that are still, earning that benefit, and they earn it every year. That's the $200,000 in service costs. The interest isn't really interest. This calculation is discounted back to present value, so that interest is kind of taking out that discounted portion. To me, when you're comparing that 1.1 million, I look at the net investment income, or that bottom part, and say, hey, that's all great, but we earned $850,000, or we saw an increase in our net position. So barring that change in assumption, which, I mean, you need to do your best to estimate that change in assumption. But if that change in assumption didn't happen, you probably would hit your 40% this year.
Okay. That's because, and in case anybody's wondering, 8 years ago, we started off we had a 20-year plan 8 years ago to hit 40%.
Yeah,
And
and that's what, you went from
jamming
11 to 40. I mean,
Yeah.
it's four times that
Okay.
amount, and that doesn't happen by accident.
All right, thanks.
And then a couple other, so there's been a number of new standards, and I know it's been somewhat painful for the accounting department. There's been auditing standards, and there's been financial standards that they've been implementing over the last couple of years. It does kind of slow down as far as the intensity of the standard. There is a one coming up that has to do with measuring compensated absence and time off. Doesn't really impact the benefit that's received. It's just how it's reported on the financial statement. So we've got webinars available. We'll be working with your staff to make sure they've got the information to address that standard appropriately on a go-forward basis. Be happy to answer any questions on anything we covered, or perhaps on anything we didn't cover this evening.
You said something that I should ask this question. When they came up with the retirement liability, which was like $29 million that suddenly Van Buren owed in 1 year, that the state wanted us to put in the bank. And then you talk about what they're going to do next year. Is there another one of those kind of things out there like OPEB?
Well,
that's going to suddenly cause us to say, okay, we have to start another fund and raise another 10, 15 million?
So I was at GFOA. So I just want to make sure. I was at GFOA last weekend. I'm sorry, the first part of last week. And GFOA, in conjunction with GASB, the Government Finance Officers Association has an annual conference. They invite the GASB to speak towards it. And they covered what was really on their short-term list of, and while there's changes maybe to the reporting model, they didn't indicate there was anything to this magnitude, or like 74 GASB 75, which was the OPEB liability, and GASB 68, which was the pension liability. Really, that liability was always there. Those two standards required not only that you measured it, but you put it on the financial statement. So that's why, it was always there. You just were seeing it for the first time, which, to be honest, is probably a good thing, because it really gave, cities, village, township, county boards, everyone really a good feel for, the kind of benefits that were going to need to be funded long term. You'd always get the, especially through MERS, what the contribution was going to be, but now you're really seeing the impact of those contributions and what that does to your overall, net liability.
Okay. Overall, how are we doing?
The township, at a point in time, because I'm always careful because I don't know what tomorrow brings. When you look at it from a financial standpoint, you're in really good shape. Your financial reporting is reliable, as I indicated, that, not really much in the way of significant entries. Your staff does an outstanding job in preparing for us. I suspect by the lack of, year-end journal entries that are required to get ready for the audit, that the information that's provided you periodically is, up to date and suits, your desires to make the decision-making that you make. I'm up here and Josh, and we're hoping that nothing that we present is a surprise to anyone. It's really, for the most part, maybe reaffirming information that you already know. You're just having another set of eyes coming out and reporting on it.
So I'm going to read this off because this is the number that we live and die by. Page 7. The general fund decreased its fund balance by approximately $3 million as of December 31st, 2023, bringing the fund balance total to approximately $18.4 million. That is your determination of what our fund balance is, right?
These are the township's financial, so that's your determination, and we offer
And
an
that's the
opinion
number-
that is materially accurate.
That is the number that they'll use against our budget to determine our percent funded. Well, okay, yeah, that's between me and Stan.
Yeah, that's for the most part, someone who's looking at, will take a look at that on a sign because there's already planned uses for the other ones. For example, if you've got restricted fund balance, well, you can't use that for general operations.
Yeah, that
There's a
doesn't include
specific
long-term debt.
Yeah, so
And
the
it doesn't-
unassigned
yeah.
number is normally
It
the one
doesn't
that's
include
focused.
our capital improvement fund. It doesn't include, okay.
It is the general fund under GASB 54 is what's included in there. So yes, the 14 is the number that's normally focused on when an outsider is looking at a set of financial statements. It's the unassigned general fund balance.
All right, I've got no more questions. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Motion by trustee Kelly, it's supported by treasurer Bud.
I have one comment I would like to make.
Sure, of course, for your group, yeah.
I would like to thank the staff from Plant Moran. We enjoyed having him in the building. Sean said, just walk in the room and say Josh, and you'll get both guys. That was nice. Thank you very much. The clerk's office, Karen Tyler, and of course, the head bookkeeper, Carol Toes, and my Sean, they've done a marvelous job. And any of the departments that were asked questions, I think the camaraderie back and forth was fine, and we certainly appreciated having our building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go back again. Trustee Kelly has made a motion and treasurer Bud has supported it. Hearing no further questions, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consider it all accepted. Are we supposed to be talking about the LDFA and all the rest of it here? Because I don't think we need to. Because that's not part of our deal, is it? No. No, never mind. We'll do it within our LDFA and within our DDA. Never mind. I was told that they were going to do all 3 audits, and I was surprised.
Normally we just spoke.
Yeah.
But if you've got any questions, because the LDFA and the DDA are included within the financial statements, as you know, there's a separate statement for each of those. If somebody's got a question on it, I'd be happy to answer it, but we had normally not presented here.
Okay. And then we'll do the audits with LDFA and DDA. So,
If you'd like us to appear
No, we're
there,
great.
let us know. Thank you.
yeah, we're good. Thank you. All right. Well, you probably want to leave.
I didn't read the rest of it. Is there anything you need us for on the rest of the agenda?
No. No. Yeah. Okay. Item number 2, discussion on to consider approval of the selection of Premier Group Associates for the Van Buren Park Beach Restoration Project. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the selection of Premier Group Associates.
Okay. Support?
Support.
Mr. Kelly? Trustee Kelly? Yes, Mr. Locke, Director Locke.
All right. Good evening, Board. So what we are planning to do is a basic refresh of the immediate shoreline of the beach at Van Buren Park. Over the years, a lot of the sand in the area has been washed away from the water runoff from the top of the peninsula. So more than half of that area now is not really sand. It's a lot of exposed stone, concrete pieces. You can see the level has dropped from the bottom walkway of the handicap ramp. So what we plan to do is to clear out all the debris and concrete from that area, which is approximately 4,700 square feet. We'll be adding 10 inches of sand, which is approximately 250 tons to that area as a nice little refresh for it. And then there are 2 storm catch basins, one on the southwest end, one on the northeast end. We'll be clearing that out along with the storm drain line that connects the two heading out. So we did a RFP issued on May 7th of this year. May 23rd, we opened bids from 6 different contractors who all attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting. These bids ranged in costs from $18,300 all the way up to $107,195. So the low bid of $18,300 was Premier Group Associates. I looked over their bid, contacted them, did a lot of research into why they were a lot lower than the other bids on there, and also to find out about their company. So one reason they gave us, or the biggest reason they gave us that they can provide services that low is that they will be doing all the work themselves, whereas some of the contractors may be subcontracting out. I did reach out to a lot of their references, and I can say that after checking references for other projects, I haven't heard feedback from references like this. Not only were they recommending the group, but they went out of their way to tell me how impressed they were with the company, the great work they've done with them, that they're very glad to work with them. And this ranges from several people from the city of Detroit, where they've done work with the water department, parks departments, and then other groups from Detroit that have done work in coordination with Premier Group for several of the parks, and also a company in Dearborn that does a lot of athletic field situations. So again, with that glowing review from them, they seemed like they would be the perfect company to help restore one of the most popular places in the township, especially this week with the heat. So unfortunately, the representative from PGA that was supposed to be here was called away for an urgent matter. So I did speak with them again about the timelines they're looking at. Once they get approval of this project, they're looking to be able to start roughly within 15 days. They're anticipating no more than 5 days for the actual cleanup and sand addition. So there will be a few days where we'll have to close down the park to the public. Once they get that installed, the beach can be opened back up, and then they will do the sewer cleaning, which they said will take them approximately 2 days, barring the weather. So again, we are recommending that Premier Group Associates gets this project for the cost of $18,300, and if you have any further questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Just a comment. I had a question, as he knows, because of the great differences, and I'd just like to thank you for all the information, and it definitely made it much easier to say, okay, we can do this.
Right.
Thank you.
Just make me feel easy about one thing that I'm concerned about. Why won't the sand wash away?
That is a project we're looking into in the future, but with all that water that's running off from the main park area coming down the entire peninsula and then running right down there, and then you get the natural shoreline erosion from the water. It's something that's going to have to be dealt with.
We're going to get a few years out of the sand, I hope, right?
Well, that's the hope of this. I mean, we're putting in 10 inches worth. That's a lot of sand in there. So, but like I said, more than half of that area already is washed away, and it's just stone. So We've had, let me say, several hints and advice from people coming to the park about wanting to see that improve, so this should give it to them. There'll be all sand down there.
Okay. It has become one of our most popular parks. It used to be just be the sandbar, but now that people are parking up on top and they're walking down and they're using the beach, and it's getting to be quite crowded.
Oh yeah, this week especially.
Oh,
They're
God,
they're going crazy this week,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and our plan, what are those huts, those canopied areas, what do they call those?
The pavilions?
The pavilions, they seem to be all filled up.
Yeah, just basically every weekend, all the pavilions are rented, so.
And I noticed the splash pad is just packed. Okay.
And Quirk Park's pavilion is basically every Saturday through the summer is booked.
And the little pavilion that's by the splash pad, I noticed that there's people in that every weekend.
Yeah, the people, any space they see that they can
Okay.
set up a party or something, or other event.
That's great. Okay. Yeah. I saw an interesting stat the other day, and it was very interesting to me because we all know the population's aging. And they show where Livonia is going to be aging up to 35, 40% of their, within the next 5 years, are going to be over 55 or 65. It's something astronomical. They showed Canton's aging too, and they're going into this orange grouping in the area. And then Romulus is in the orange group. Everybody was in the orange group area except for Van Buren, north of I-94 to Van Born. It's still in what's called the green area, which means that there's still a growing population of school-age children. So, get out of here. I was shocked. Yeah, it's about the only area there was. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we have a motion, I'm sorry. Is there any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion by trustee Frazier, supported by trustee Kelly. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
You.
Next item is a discussion on a second reading. A second reading is very important. It's a roll call vote. It does affirm a law. Who would like to?
Through the chair,
Trustee Boynton.
I move to approve of the second reading of ordinance, excuse me, 060424, number 1, to amend the zoning ordinance to provide language clarifying signage provisions for the Sumter and Belleville Road mixed-use districts.
Support.
Director Powers.
Yes, thank you, Board. This is a second reading. The first reading was on June 4th, as you know. This is a set of zoning ordinance amendments that will allow for sign provisions for different uses in our two mixed-use zoning districts. Apologize for the screen there. We have had sign regulations in place for many years for our conventional zoning districts in the township, where you have standard residential, commercial, office, and industrial zoning. But with our mixed-use districts, including the Belleville Road mixed-use and Sumter Road mixed-use districts, we realized we did not have specific sign regulations. So when new projects come in, like the Tractor Supply project that we're reviewing currently, we realized that we needed something in place. So what we did is take anything that's permitted in the mixed-use district and line up commercial use types are allowed to use the commercial zoning style signage available in the C1, C2, and C districts. Residential uses in the mixed use districts can use the residential sign allotments, and so on and so forth. So that's the intent of that set of zoning ordinance amendments, and this would be the second reading, just clarifying some sign rules. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
No? We talked about it earlier. We've met with Belleville and Sumter. It's a joint commission, and we discussed it there. So since we've already discussed it, there's probably not a lot of questions, and there isn't. So hearing, I have a motion by trustee Boynton, supported by trustee Frazier. Deputy Clerk, could you call a roll?
Trustee Frazier? Yes. Trustee Kelly? Yes. Trustee Boynton?
Yes.
Treasurer Bud?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamara?
Yes. Thank you. Next item is the second reading also.
Through the chair.
Trustee Boynton?
I move to approve of the second reading of ordinance 060424, number 2, rezoning of property at parcel ID V 125-83-124-99-0003-701 from AG Agricultural and Estate to SRMU Sumter Road Mixed Use District.
Support.
Thank you. Director?
Okay, thank you, Board. This would be, again, the second reading of this time it's a proposed property rezoning ordinance, and the purpose of this rezoning is to rezone roughly a little over 5 acres of land at the southeast corner of Hull Road and Sumter Road for the purpose of bringing in a tractor supply store. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 22nd and reviewed the site's consistency with the Sumter Road mixed-use future land use and made a recommendation to rezone to the SRMU zoning district, which will enable the tractor supply store on this site, and that zoning district is meant to enable a lot of different land uses along the Sumter Road corridor. So I think the Planning Commission was excited to hear that this would be a kind of a linchpin project for that corner, and we had a couple of favorable comments at that public hearing, and I know Treasurer Budd was involved as well, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Second reading, we've already asked the question, so I have a motion by Trustee Boynton, supported by Trustee Frazier. Hearing no further questions, Deputy Clerk, could you call the roll?
Trustee Frazier? Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Trustee Boynton?
Yes.
Treasurer Budd? Supervisor McNamara?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Director. We have no reports to give. We're now at public comment. If anybody from the public wishes to get up and introduce themselves or say hi or thank you. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Supervisor McNamara and the Board of Trustees. I am here just to introduce myself. I hear the air just came on, so I'll try to speak up a little bit more. My name is Teresa Patton. I am here to introduce myself as one of the candidates for 34th District Court Judgeship. I am running to fill the vacant seat that will be left by one of the judges who is retiring. I am a wife and a mother of 6. I live at 13712 Pond Bluff Drive in Van Buren Township, and I currently serve as 34th District Court's Indigent Defense Coordinator. What that means is that I appoint attorneys for those who cannot afford to hire them for themselves. I've been doing that for about 5 years at the court, and 3 years ago I became the director of a regional office where we now appoint attorneys as well as provide other resources for 20 of the 24 district courts in Wayne County. So not only do we appoint the attorneys and send House counsel in, we also run the investigators and expert program for those attorneys. I have a roster of about 120 attorneys that I send into those 20 courts to make sure that they have the resources they need to represent the individuals, their clients, to the best of their ability. In addition to that, the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, in conjunction with LARA, has passed 8 standards to help guide what indigent defense looks like in Michigan. So because of that, there are reports that need to be given to the state of Michigan every quarter and annually, as well as we have to apply for grant money once per year. So I manage a budget of a little bit over $5 million to run my office as well as the indigent defense programs for the 20 district courts, providing money for the experts and the investigators, as well as ancillary staff at the courts to make sure that defendants are represented. And we also have to prepare those budgets, submit them, and do the quarterly reports to make sure that the grant funds are spent the way that they were intended to be spent. So that's a little bit about what I'm doing right now for 34th District Court, as well as the other 19 district courts that we manage in Wayne County. Prior to doing that, I was an attorney that went into court. I've been an attorney for 24 years. I served as the state prosecutor through the prosecuting attorney's office in Wayne County for 34th District Court for about 5 years, from around 2005 through 2010, when I left the prosecutor's office to start my own law firm. At that point in time, I became one of the court-appointed attorneys at 34th District Court until Jeff Bowditch took over the entire program by himself. It was in 2019 that they called me and asked me to run their indigent defense program. I am running for judge to continue my service of 34th District Court and the communities that they serve, which include Van Buren Township, Belleville, Romulus, Sumter Township, and Huron Township. I am dedicated to service. I have dedicated my career to service at court as well as in my personal life, and I am running to continue that service to be a fair judge, impartial, one that makes sure that justice is accessible to all equally and in a way that is attentive and with respect, and people who walk into the courtroom leave with their dignity. I know that I can bring that to the bench. I am experienced. I have a versatile experience not only at the court, but in my legal career altogether. And that's just a little bit about me and why I am running for judge at 34th District Court and the experience that I am bringing with me. So thank you again for your time to briefly introduce myself. You can't really learn a person in 3 minutes, but that's me in a nutshell. I will stick around until the end of the meeting in case anyone would like to speak with me afterwards. I also would like to invite you all out to my meet and greet at the Rustic Crow. It's next week, Tuesday, starting at 5:30 to 8 p.m. Even though there's a suggested ticket price for those of you on the board who would like to attend, I have no problem comping your ticket to come out and spend some time with you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. It's very nice of you to come by and introduce yourself. That's old school. That's good. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. All right, so does anybody else have any public comment that they wish to make? Any board members want to make a comment?
Ask Dan.
No public comment, but I did want to acknowledge for announcements, the township offices will be closed tomorrow in recognition of Juneteenth.
Okay. We're into adjournment. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Frazier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Okay.